place too, the air, the walls, the floor, the ceiling, all words, the whole world is here with me. And then again, the breathing stops. Excuse me, that too. Isn't it a coincidence that these sensations of apnea appear to have increased with the memory of amnesia, as I was thinking of Beckett again, as if his own history of tormented sleep, palpitations, spasm, suffocations, and memories of forgetting, or the always egregious aggregate of those he'd rather forget, not only sebaceous cysts on the anus, eczema, or herpes on the face, but a life before birth, which he always claimed to remember, his own stifling, fetal existence, curled up worm in slime, the intrauterine position, trapped there in prison, crying out to escape, nobody hearing, nobody listening, were responsible for the symptoms. As for his symptoms, they appeared to be, as in the unnameable, the identity disorder of a non-identity, or equivocal, dubious being, referred to as I, that most pernicious pronoun in the semiosis of Beckett. I, not me. It is not about me, as it appears to be in Endgame, when Ham removes the handkerchief from his face and announces, me, he yawns to play, in the objective case. But in the preamble to the unnameable that never comes to an end, perhaps because it never begins, the affirmations and negations invalidated as uttered, or sooner or later always return to the I, of whom I know nothing. I know my eyes are open because of the tears that pour from them unceasingly. I know I am seated. My hands on my knees because of the pressure against my rump, against the soles of my feet, against the palms of my hands, against my knees. But what is this pressure, that retrograde pressure, in which the hypertensive body may not, with tears flowing, really be sure which end is up? I don't know. My spine is not supported. I mention these details to make sure I'm not lying on my back, my legs raised, and then my eyes closed. Darkened, there, forgotten, as if abandoned before birth. If there's long been, not only in the theater, but in our writings on Beckett too, that virtual habit of thinking through him, his words, my words, or by means of the aporias in his own afflicted thought, affecting, solipsistic, and even masochistic, that occurs by something other than the self-commiserating solace of sympathetic identification. What drew me to Beckett to begin with, from the nothing to be done, a line that launches the waiting for the absence known as Godot, to the traumatizing mathematics in his shorter plays and prose, was an activating exactitude about an encrypted void, what otherwise seemed hopeless, or what, if you really engaged it, with the temptations to laugh it off, what Beckett himself provoked, mostly overdone now, in stagings of his plays, was really unnerving too. That is, it was still disoriented, even desperate, for all the going on, as when Pozzo takes off with Lucky, to those late variations on a still point, he having been dreamt away, letting himself be dreamt away over the abyssal depths, whence went back, no knowing, where, no telling, where been, how long, how it was. There was always that impasse in Beckett, whether waiting, going, or coming, the hopeless detour of an incessant impasse, where you try to go on, and you can't go on, and the talking seems to continue, call it the babble or dribble. What hell will be like, says Henry, in the long opening monologue of the radio play Embers, which also begins with on, which always went on forever, like the stories he told himself. Stories, stories, years and years of stories, till the need came on me for someone to be with me, anyone. One might say, not only with Pozzo's coming and going, or the stories, that Beckett gets a lot of mileage out of the vicissitudes of despair. And when the measures are taken, the astringent mathematics, with the abyss more or less at a paradistic distance, so with rough for Theater 1, when B, in his wheelchair, asks the blind fiddler, A, why don't you let yourself die? And A says he thought of it, whereupon B says in irritation, but you don't do it. To which A replies, and with some violence when B pursues it, I am not unhappy enough. Now I grant you that nothing is funnier than unhappiness. Yes, it's the most comical thing in the world, as Nell says in her ashbin in Endgame, before she's pushed down with no pulse and the lid closed again. We laugh, but like the funny story we've heard too often, we still find it funny, but we don't laugh anymore. And so it must have been for Beckett at the extremities of despair, and letting you see what you wouldn't, sometimes manic obsessively, if the exactitude wasn't exacting, like the nothing to be done that had to be done, to become the nothing that is, which would be the merest nothing without a psychic course inscribed on the body as well. And it could be like the fibrous degeneration in his play Catastrophe, felt at considerable cost. One of the tumescent or Edenic conditions from which Beckett himself suffered, the thickening deep tissue that passes from palm to fingers, causing the hands to claw. It was inflicted on the character P, the barefoot protagonist upon a planet, who seems nothing more than a prop, fists clenched, face down, black wide-brimmed hat, black gown, not hooded or veiled, but like the now notorious figure Abu Ghraib, up on a pedestal too, with electric wires attached to his hands. With D, the director, as chief sadist, the torture is a performance, or the performance torture us, prepared by precise instructions to A, the more than willing female assistant, with a craze for explicitation, every eye guided to death, every element carefully staged, but as if for a Broadway audience of the French boulevards in the composition of pain. Elsewhere, it might be diagrammed or timed down to the second, as in a play, with faces lost to age up to their necks in the urns, not just play, but all out, all the pain, with a direction to, in big letters, repeat, the repetition for confirmation like an experiment in a lab. Well, there is in Beckett, with his own explicitation, a microphysics of misery, or as he once said about Proust, a science of affliction, in which at some sub-punitive molecular extremity or ineluctable non-sequitur rage, there's a desire for atomization, as with Mrs. Rooney in All That Fall, never tranquil, laughing wildly, oh, to be in atoms, strangely, atoms, in the annihilating wish of despair, subtextually, subatomically, an apotheosis of dehiscence. Now, there's not only a science here, with those words behaving like arcs, the Beckettian string theory, but also an aesthetic, in the birth that is the decadent as it happens again. No difficulty there happens to be an exception. Imagination, dead, yet, dead, good. Imagination, dead, imagine. Which imagine puts the burden on you. And yes, dead good, if you ever had imagination. The question is whether you can, including from 1,000 little signs, too wrong to imagine, the infinitesimal shudder instantaneously suppressed. Meanwhile, with a philosophical disposition that Beckett often denied, or was disturbed by in others when applied to his work, there is an epistemology, too, in the tormented susurrus, or superfetation of words, that sudden urge to tell, get it all out. If not a confessional, nearest lavatory, start pouring it out. Steady stream, mad stuff, half the vowels wrong, no one could follow. I mean the whole heartbreaking, experimental glut. That's right, word shit, bury me, avalanche. If not, then silent, words unspoken, errors acknowledged, knowledge unknowing, thoughts, no, not thoughts, rather profounds of mind, buried in who knows what profounds of mind, or mindlessness, which, with no relief, deep in what sleep will